This episode is brought to you by Absolute Landscapes. Absolute Landscapes is a landscape maintenance company that focuses heavily on commercial property maintenance. Call today for information about the services we provide and how we can best help you. 803 427 5944.
Yeah. You can. Yeah, whatever you want to say, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming to this episode of the Pure Wisdom Podcast. I'm your guest today, Zakariya Frank, and I am the CMO of the Center for Advancement in Cancer Education. We are a 47-year-old nonprofit organization that educates people on holistic ways to prevent or heal from cancer. And yeah, there's a lot of exciting programs we do there. I also run a podcast of my own called The Health King's Court, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Health. In that, I cover a variety of holistic health and wellness topics, anything from physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, familial, relationships, and anything in between that can help people live a healthy, happy, and fulfilled life. And that's me.
So I love how you said that, because you said to prevent and heal cancer. And I feel like in the medical space, especially in the, I guess conventional medical space, there's a lot, like, we don't really think about preventing diseases until we have one. And then it's like treating the disease. You don't think about, a lot of people don't think about what to do to, well, I guess maybe heart attacks are a little bit different, but like what to prevent, how diabetes or cancer or heart conditions or, joint conditions or whatever. We don't really think about preventing these things. I just feel like there's a much bigger, for lack of a better word, it is what it is. It's just, there's a much bigger industry in treating it after you get it versus, preventing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a fantastic place to start, because fundamentally we have to install different mindsets towards disease, whether that's cancer or anything else, to really comprehend holistic health and wellness at a fundamental level. Mm-hmm. Diseases aren't just some random thing. Nothing in this life is random. And there's a lot of organizations and kind of media pushers that want people to think that things in this world, or even just the world itself and humanity at large, are random. And it's such a disservice to ourselves at every single level, disease included, because when we think that diseases are just some random boogeyman things that float around the sky and come and bite you and there's nothing you could do about it, or some genetic destiny that you're destined to have because, it runs in your family, whatever that means, then this is a very disempowered stance. This is a very disempowered positioning, and it prevents people from kind of being aware and conscious and taking responsibility for the choices they're making in their everyday that are either bringing them towards disease or away from it. Prevention is the cure for everything. And like you said so succinctly, nursing along a disease in a manner in which someone's paying you to do so, that's a great business model financially. I don't know about ethically and morally, but yeah.
So yeah, and that's a good point though. You said prevention is a cure. I like that. But it's almost like people, they think, I think a lot of people just anticipate or expect that at some point in their life they're going to have some sort of, cardiovascular issue or cancer or, diabetes or whatever it is. Like I think a lot of people just accept this as something that, happens with age, but I refuse to believe that, man. I don't think I don't think that's true. I think we can, live most, if not all of our lives without some sort of major illness. I think, what is it? There's 4 main causes, like 4 huge health issues. I think there is heart issues, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and I forget what the other one is. But there's 4 like leading causes of death that are like, I can't remember what the 4th one is. There's a book. There's a book called
normally medical malpractice and mistakes, but
oh yeah, well I think that's a much bigger issue than what people think it is. The book is called. Have you ever read Superhuman by Dave Asprey? I think his name is Dave Asprey.
It sounds familiar, but I haven't read it.
So he basically talks about healthy aging, and I don't know, something. He had some kind of thing where he aged quicker than he should have in his early life, in his mid 30s or whatever. Anyways, he wrote a book about how to kind of not prolong aging, but just kind of reverse aging was his kind of catchphrase. Yep. But yeah, I just think that a lot of times people just anticipate like, at some point they're going to get cancer or diabetes or have a heart issue, And I don't know, man. I think we can, like I said, I think we can live most, if not all of our lives without having to deal with that. I just do not accept that it's just the standard for us to have one of these issues. Because first of all, you brought up a good point too. Like we talk about genetics. I think a lot of these things are environmental, man. Like, and this is one of the reasons that I love the way that you put this, prevent cancer, because a lot of these cancer issues, like I feel like the majority of cancer case, and I don't know, you're much more educated in this than I am, but I feel like a lot of the cancer issues would be eliminated if we just took the shit out of the food that's in the food, or we just took the stuff out of the environment. You know what I mean? Like it is fascinating to me that you can get I don't know where you live, but I think this is a nationwide thing, at least for the US. You can get a seatbelt ticket for not having a seatbelt because people are concerned about your safety. But then you can go to the grocery store and like there are boxes of food, quote unquote food, that are like good on the shelf for like 2 or 3 years. I'm like, bro, if we were really concerned about safety and health, why are we not addressing this? Why are we not addressing the fact that in the US, there are food ingredients, if you even want to call it that are outlawed in Europe? Like if you look at food from Europe, the ingredient list is like half of what it is in the US. I don't drink soda. I haven't drank soda in a while, but even soda in Europe is much different from the US.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's certainly strange when you look at the way that things are set up at a meta level, and when you look for it to make sense, and when you look for all of these things to be set up in our favor, that's what sets you up for the confusion and either the dissonance or the having to kind of figure out the alternative, which is that they are not meant to be set up in your favor. None of these things are. Whether it is what's in the food stores, whether it is what's in the hospitals, whether it is what's in those legal books and codes and policies. Like when you understand that they are not actually designed to help you, that's the only way when they start to actually make sense. That's kind of where everything lies. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. So much is environmental that people don't really come to comprehend. And that's where the personal accountability and responsibility to manage our environmental circumstances is. It's not just food though. Food will get you very far. Cleaning up your food will get you very far. But diet is way more than just food. Mm-hmm. Diet is, what are you inputting into yourself mentally? What kind of emotional diet do you have? What are you, what kind of relationship diet do you have? What are you around all day? What kind of people are you around all day? All of these things will play a role on your health and wellness holistically, and even in regards to cancer. And so, yeah, cleaning up these fundamentals, these basic lifestyle things will actually get someone really far in preventing or healing from cancer, no matter where you are. It's the same process. You have certain things that will move you towards health. You have certain things that'll move you towards sickness, and it's a spectrum. Everyone's somewhere along the spectrum in different regards at any point in time. But, the genetics thing is an interesting conversation. It's extremely overblown. It's extremely overblown in mainstream kind of mental thinking about it and in the scientific community, I'd say, and in the medical community. It's been kind of this cure-all excuse, this cure-all reasoning, this broad stroke. It's genetics. Oh, yeah, you're probably going to get that. It's genetics. And again, this is a disempowering stance. Mm-hmm. Notice that theme. And so genetics are real in the sense that, yes, your parents pass on DNA to you. And yes, your parents may have done things in their lifetime that damaged themselves at a cellular and DNA level. And then, of course, how can they pass on clean, healthy DNA to you if they themselves had damaged DNA? And when you get through generations of this happening, then yes, we can be born with certain genetic disadvantages, just like certain people could be born with certain genetic advantages. That's very real. But the part of the equation that's not talked about enough is epigenetics. The fact that you can change your genes, you can activate and deactivate certain parts of your DNA and repair certain parts of your DNA through positive choices in your lifetime. Now, again, because we are so deep down ancestral damaging ourselves in different capacities, can we repair to 100% in one lifetime? A lot of times, no. But can we remove and kind of unload the gun that is a genetic disposition to certain diseases so we don't actually actualize that disease within our lifetime and face it? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it takes conscious awareness and choices. But the things that you named earlier, the what was it? The Alzheimer's, diabetes, the cancer, like all these things are interrelated because they're all matters of toxicity. They're all matters of certain things going on in the body that shouldn't be in the body. And yeah, they're all preventable. And what's very interesting is, again, this is something that you got to be very careful talking about, but I've seen some very interesting information about people that have reversed all of these things through certain actions.
Do you know who Gary Brecka is? He's got a lot of traction recently. He was on Joe Rogan. He's a human biologist, talks about a lot of these issues. You've probably seen him online, Instagram or TikTok. He's I think he got kind of I think he really blew up when Dana White, the CEO of UFC, I don't know, he did something with him and he helped him with weight loss or some type of blood pressure issue, or I don't know, something like that. It's all public. They talked about it publicly. But Gary Brecka, says that Alzheimer's is like a type 3 diabetes. Because he says that what it is people think that these people they lose their memory. But he said what it is they lose access to their memory. And I can't explain it the way he did scientifically, but basically, yeah, you say that this is preventable and reversible, and I agree, and I believe that. The problem is, and I don't mean to put on my tinfoil hat here because, well, first of all, tinfoil probably causes cancer. The aluminum probably causes the cancer.
Well, I mean, it's great that you say that, and the Alzheimer's conversation specifically, because aluminum actually has a large tie to Alzheimer's and other interesting ailments as well. But please finish what you were going to say.
What was I going to say? So Gary Brecka, the type 3 diabetes. Oh, we were talking about, you said that it could be reversed, and I agree with that. But I think there's obviously more money in treating a long-term issue versus, not. And so if there really is some sort of organization or person or group of people who want to profit off of a long-term treatment of a disease, like they're going to make a lot more money off of treating that thing long-term versus a one and done thing. Listen, I own a landscaping company, and we mow people's grass once a week or every other week. If there was a situation where we just put something on the grass and it just stopped growing, we'd be out of business in like 2 weeks, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's always more money in a long-term thing versus a short-term thing. And I know that's the tinfoil hat situation. But I don't know, man. It's just like how much of this is, like, there's just so much going on that I feel like it cannot be coincidence. Like with the, well, we'll get into that stuff a little bit later. But so Gary Brecka, he says that the Alzheimer's is like a type 3 diabetes because he says that people don't lose their memory; they just lose access to it. Something about insulin and the insulin resistance, or something about insulin. I can't explain it scientifically, but yeah, so the epigenetics, you were talking about epigenetics. That's an interesting concept because I think when people say, it's genetic, my dad has this, my mom had this, grandparents had this. I think that it's almost like sometimes when people say that, it's like an excuse, like, oh, well, nothing I can do about it. It's just my genetics. I have green eyes. There's nothing I can do to change it. Like, that's just how it is. And it's almost like, man, that's almost like an excuse. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Everyone wants an excuse. Excuses are easy. Excuses are the reason to not work hard. Health is hard. Health is not a lazy man's game. It takes work to keep yourself healthy. It takes work to keep your family healthy and your children healthy. Like, it's not going to be easy. Nobody said it's going to be. Nobody said it's supposed to be. In fact, it's probably getting harder. But in the same time, it's getting easier to access information as the cracks on the dam of censorship grow larger that is on the internet. But it's work, but nothing in life that's good does come easy. And on the other side of doing that work and figuring out, and it is like the snowball effect where okay, if you've been living under the societal schemas of health and sickness, really, and you want to start to come to comprehend the body and how it actually works and reality and our fundamental relationship between ourselves and our bodies and reality, then yeah, it's a difficult task to undertake. It's difficult to like start that, right? Like where do you even start? But as you go, that snowball kind of starts to get bigger and it gets more momentum. And once you look into something in a good way once, yeah, you could revisit it. Of course, always brush up and make sure you have current information. But as you build a working comprehension of certain health elements, you start to build upon that. And all of a sudden, you're making one change, you're making two changes, you're making three changes. Next thing you know, it could be a year later and you feel radically different than you did a year ago because you're just implementing things along the way. And now things are kind of easy. You know what to look out for in the grocery store, you know what to look out for on the clothing rack, you know what to look out for in the body products and in the cleaning products. And you know how to drink clean water. And then it's not something that you have to necessarily like kill yourself over all the time. You can start to learn and start to figure things out as you go. Again, not necessarily going to be easy, but it doesn't have to be something that like you're enslaved to either. And on the other side of that hard work is living a better life. Like
Mm-hmm.
I struggle to comprehend how people don't look into these things. I guess some people just aren't built the same. Like they're just
Well,
they just don't
so
care.
my thing is like it's going to be hard either way. Like it's hard to
Yeah.
be in shape and it's hard to be, financially successful, but it's also hard to be out of shape. It's also hard to be broke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's going to be hard either way. You just have to pick what hard it is. And it can be hard up front. Like, you can do the hard thing at the first part of your day, have an easier part in the later part of the day, or you can take the easy part of the day and be exhausted because you're out of shape and you didn't do the thing you said you wanted to do and you didn't overcome the mental battle of the morning. But I mean, it's going to be hard either way, man. It's going to
Yeah.
be hard either way. Okay, so let's do this. I want to talk about your treatment, or maybe not your treatment, but the treatment part of your company, and then maybe we'll talk about prevention. I want to talk about treatment first, though, like the holistic treatment. Like, do you guys, what do you do in that space? Like, as far as I don't know if this is something you could talk about publicly, but just like the holistic
Yeah.
treatments, like what does that even mean for cancer? Because the only thing that comes to my mind, I think a lot of people think about is like I don't even know if this is still a thing, but cannabis oil for a while there, was a popular thing. I don't know if that ever took off or not. I haven't heard much about that recently.
Yeah. So, first things first, we don't treat anyone. We are not a treatment center. That's a very coveted word, and it's a word that'll get you in trouble. So, we don't treat anybody. We simply provide and point people towards interesting information and education with which they can make choices themselves and consult the appropriate professionals themselves and decide whatever it is they want to do as sovereign individuals. We don't provide treatment. What we do is provide education. So what kind of things do we educate on people on and bring to their awareness? Well, it kind of starts with an audit, right? If you want to improve anything, whether that's the finances of your company or I mean anything that you have going on, well, you have to figure out where you are first,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's two parts to the equation. It's where you are and where you want to be. And so if you don't know where you are first and you don't know what brought you to where you are first, well then how can you figure out how to get from that point of the here and now to your end destination? So starts with an audit. And that's a full-fledged audit of everything that's going on in that person's life or has been going on in that person's life or used to go on in that person's life. What kind of course, diet are they eating and have they eaten historically? What kind of physical shape have they kept themselves in? What kind of emotional state have they been in? What significant traumas may they have faced? What's their just daily existence and what kind of things are they facing, right? Because everyone's body is unique. There are, of course, overall themes and schemas, but everyone's cancer is so personal. What brings one person to a state of cancer or the conglomerated contributory factors that bring one person to a state of cancer are not the same for another person. So that's why we have to figure out what's going on with that person specifically that may have brought them to a state of temporary unwellness. Because everything is so individualized. And so once that is figured out, only then can a step towards the other direction of correcting those specific things be come up with. And so, there's not necessarily a one size fits all solution. There are overall things like, hey, yeah, of course you got to get your diet right. Of course you got to cut out toxic relationships. Of course you have to leave negative environments. It's all the good living stuff that people should be doing all along the way. And so specific actionable plans are very independent, but that's kind of the process. Figure out what brought you here and then figure out how to undo those things. It's that's the basics.
So that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned something right there I want to touch on, which is the environment, your mental and emotional health. And I would even say spiritual health because of your environment. I don't know if you know who Andrew Huberman is.
Yep.
So he just did a podcast recently about skin health, and he made a connection, which I didn't realize was a connection, that your skin health is directly related to your gut health, which is directly related to your immune health. And it's like I'm sure you know, and I hope other people know that stress, like emotional stress, is a very big factor in people who are like chronically sick, with colds or whatever it is. Stress on the body, external stress, involuntary stress is not good for our health. And I don't think it can be. The reason I brought in the skin thing is it's like a domino effect. If your immune system is stressed and your gut system is stressed, and then your skin, you see people who just seem like they're doing well, and their skin has this glow to it. It's like Huberman was explaining that your skin can be a reflection of what's going on sort of with your immune system and your gut system, which I find fascinating. But the problem is that these stress factors that we have, environmental, whether it's work, family, personal life, whatever it is, I think that this does not get enough attention because we feel like that we can just handle it and whatever. But it's like I feel like you can only process and you can only tolerate so much stress, man. And I don't feel like stress management or the alleviation of the stressor or the stressing factor, whatever it is, I don't think that's something that gets enough attention. I think that because when we first had this conversation, when we first started talking, I immediately went to food and diet and, the things like cutting out cigarettes or tobacco or alcohol. I think that's almost like that's common sense. But then we don't think about on the other end, like, yes, the genetics, I guess that's taken into it, but we don't think about like stress, like the day-to-day stress, the day-to-day, what am I trying to say here? The day-to-day, the hit that we take on the stress that our body takes from stress. Like we don't think about those kind of things. So I think it's just important to talk about these things that we don't necessarily. I don't want to say it's not mainstream because none of this stuff is really mainstream. But it's like, what areas do you see other than maybe stress that people don't really think about that maybe we should? Because I think environmental is a very big one. Like your emotional, mental, physical health. I think that's a big thing. So. Because I wanted to ask you this earlier, but we kind of got off of it because we were talking, like I said, we were talking about diet, and then we just went into some other stuff. But diet. So here's the question: diet is like the main thing. Diet and the cigarettes, alcohol, whatever it is. What's some things that need attention that's not really getting attention the way it is?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot, but first I even want to touch on the stress and expand upon that because. I don't understand a lot of people's relationship with stress. People seem to think that if they are feeling stressed, that it's kind of like a thing that they can fix. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where people got that concept from. Life is stressful for all living beings. The antelope in the field is stressed that it's going to get eaten. So it has to stay aware and ready for action. The lion that wants to eat the antelope is stressed that it's not going to catch it, and it might starve to death. Like, we as humans have been given this installment into our brains that somehow, if we just arrange everything in some sort of way, we're going to avoid stress. And if we're feeling stressed, that means, that's a bad thing and it shouldn't be like that. Like, I don't agree with that at all. And I think that sets someone up for utter failure, because then they get stressed that they're feeling stressed. And it's like this compounding effect. Stress doesn't have to be a bad thing. There is positive stress and there is negative stress. It's not really the amount of stress that will make someone sick. That's not the direct correlation. It's how we process it, how we view it, how we take action upon it. Two people facing the same amount of stress, if one person thinks that that stress is going to be bad for them, they'll get sick and die sooner. If one person thinks, ooh, I like that stress, it makes me under pressure and I perform under pressure, they're going to perform, they're going to have a good life, they're going to live longer. That's anecdotal, but that's also scientifically observed, actually. And so first we have to come to comprehend, don't like shy away from stress. Lean into it. Understand it's inevitable in a positive way, and work to alleviate the stress where you can and take action. Use it as a guiding force. But now there's two key things that actually cause sickness from stress. And this is something that we talk about in our course. So this is some secret sauce. Two of the main components that determine if stress is going to be something that contributes to ailment, whether that's cancer or otherwise, are if you feel it's inevitable in a bad way, like it's just always going to be this particular stressor that's very stressful and it's very like a very negative charging thing for you is inevitable and it can't be avoided, so you're powerless. And if you feel like completely out of control, and those are related but slightly different. And so when you feel like you're not in the driver's seat of the scenario, you have like no sovereignty in that scenario that's causing you stress, and you feel like it's inevitable, that it's just going to keep coming, that's the contributory factors of stress causing ailment such as cancer, etc. But yeah, it's such a mental shift that people can do and do a greater justice to themselves to look at stress a different way. And the other part of your question is, what other things do people not think about besides stress? Well, we've already talked about a good handful of them. Whether we've talked about the skin goes both ways, right? The skin as a sign for us will let us know about things that are going on internally. The gut health is one of them, and that is a huge thing to bear in mind as well, because our gut health is directly linked to our brain health and our mental health and our ability to cognate. But then also, to get back to the skin, what we are inputting to our skin is a huge part of our diet that should be considered. The skin is porous. The skin is absorbent. The skin is the largest organ on the body, and it has pores, and it will soak in whatever you expose it to. So what are you exposing it to? What are you slathering onto yourself in the form of petrochemical lotion, in the form of, sunscreen for some reason? These people are out here afraid of the sun. In the form of, different chemicals in your house, in your air. What are you bathing in? What kind of water are you showering in? On the conversation of water, everyone talks about, yeah, let's drink good water. But all that's kind of a moot point if you're showering and opening up your pores in a nice hot shower to chlorinated, fluoridated, microbial, aluminum, all this garbage in the water. So what are you absorbing within your skin? What are you wrapping your skin in as you go about your day? Are you wrapping it, again, in petroplastic clothing? Polyester, nylon, rayon, all these fabrics, there's like a new one every week. They're just fancy names for plastic. And so are you wrapping yourself in plastic every day, going around your day, letting those fibers soak into your pores, opening up your pores as you sweat and get hot and move around? What are you doing to your skin? That's a huge part of it. And then, like I said, gut health is related. What are we doing for our gut? How's someone's gut microbiome? Has anyone ever thought about their gut microbiome? Has anyone taken steps to balance it, make sure it's balanced, see what the conditions are? Or do they just accept, sometimes I eat stuff and I don't feel good? Or like it's insane to me, man. People are out here with wrecked guts and experiencing the symptoms of it and just thinking it's normal. Just thinking it's normal to be, quote, lactose intolerant. Thinking it's normal to have all these gut issues that they don't even realize, have, bowel movement issues that they don't even realize are issues. It's being unwell is not an inherent function of age. And this is something to tie back to what you were saying earlier. But people have been kind of led to believe that as they start compounding these different ways that they feel unwell, that it is just a factor of age, and so they don't look any farther than that. It's a huge disservice. But things ignored generally don't just get better. So, you got to think about these things if you want to start moving in a positive direction. You want to dig into that? We could certainly go into other things that people don't think about, but I want to let you bite it.
No, that's like I'm sitting here thinking that's a really good point, talking about the skin and talking about, I've heard of clothing and things like that. Of course, environmental factors, chemicals, and whatever. But I think that's a huge one to narrow down on, because people don't think about that. This is what I'm talking about the tinfoil hat, man. So
listen,
when
put
I'm
it
in
on, bro. Put it on. Block those
Well,
EMFs. Put
no,
it on.
because
you want me to go get mine? I'll go get mine.
because look, here's the thing. I've always thought this kind of thing, and then it's like, oh well, dude, I feel like I'm crazy for this shit, because what I'm about to say, it's like, so think about this. For me, this is a big thing. The gym, being in the gym, gyms have most of them have like an anti bacterial spray, or either a wipe that you wipe the equipment down on. And so here's my thing, dude. You're in there, you're hot, you're doing your thing, and they have this, whatever this chemical is on this wipe or this spray, and it gets on your hand, your hands, your pores are already open because you're hot. Like how much of that is going into your bloodstream? You know what I mean? Like how much of that is getting into your body? What is this chemical that we're wiping these machines down with, that nobody's wearing gloves for? They're just spraying it, and people just spray the shit. They just spray it all over the gym. It gets in the air, people breathe it in, whatever. And it's like, I've always been kind of conscious of that, and I'm like, at the time it makes me kind of feel like I'm paranoid a little bit, but now since we're having this conversation, I mean, it's like it makes sense.
Yeah, the whole antimicrobial war on bacteria is just garbage. It's so insane. It's really crazy. Antibiotics, antimicrobial, germs, like it's this overblown focusing on these invisible alleged little enemies that are just going to get you. And people don't understand that we are made of microbes. We are made of life. Biotic is life. So if something is antibiotic, it's anti-life. You are life. It is anti-you. They tell you in the name, right in the name. It's insane, man. But yeah, these antimicrobial, antibacterial, everything is such a disservice. It's such a huge disservice to our health. We need our biome. We need our bacteria. Without bacteria, you don't exist.
Right,
There's bacteria everywhere, maintaining your body.
This is such a good. I want to ask you this before I forget.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about antibiotics. So what's your opinion on this? Because we talk about people pop antibiotics and pain relievers and Tylenol and shit, and people just take it. Like they just take it. They don't try to let their body fight it. They have a sniffle for a day, and then they go and take a 5-day antibiotic. It's like, but think about this though, because there's like genuine concerns about this in this health and wellness space. Like an antibiotic, like you said, is a living organism, or a bacteria is a living organism. That's a thing. Like it's just there. And so if we just like over time, if we take antibiotics because every single time we have an infection or we don't feel well or whatever, is it not the case that these bacteria will evolve to the point to where they're resistant to these antibiotics? And then what do we do? So basically, it's like, if I understand this correctly, when people talk about this, it's like we have a timeline on how long antibiotics will be effective until we need to modify them to then kill the bacteria that's evolving, if that makes sense.
But are they even effective? Let's think about it at a fundamental level. Are they effective without greater risk and harm than they are positive and effective? It's like if your house is dirty, if one room of your house is dirty, would you set the whole house on fire? Yeah, yes or no? Would you do that? Would you think that's a rational and a reasonable response? Probably not, right? And so what these antibiotics are doing very largely is when there's a particular issue somewhere, And this is setting aside the whole conversation of if those bacteria are actually the cause or if they're a symptom of what's actually going on. That's a whole very interesting discussion. But let's say you have, quote, bad bacteria you want to get rid of in a particular area. You add this antibiotic cream or pill or whatever. Well, now you've just nuked the biome. The good stuff and the bad stuff. You've just radically thrown off the balance and just dropped a bomb in your gut. And so, yeah, sure, maybe these antibiotic pills are destroying the, quote, bad bacteria that someone doesn't want in their body. Again, that's a whole other conversation. But you've also likely killed a lot of the like good ones too. And then how does the dust settle? Right? Well, if you just burn your house down, you don't necessarily just get a new house spawning in that spot. And it's nice and beautiful and better than it was before. So if you are going to nuke your biome, you better make damn sure that you're building it back up in a positive way afterwards. But nobody does. Nobody does. Perhaps the better solution, rather than burning your whole house down, is just cleaning up the house. Just cleaning up what's made it dirty in the first place. People don't think about that. There's things that you could do to restore balance without just burning the whole house down. And it's crazy. And then antibiotics, that's why they really wreck the gut, because the gut is one of those systems of our body that's highly dependent on having a healthy balance of gut flora. Highly dependent upon it. And that's why people are out here with wrecked gut health with all these antibiotics, because like you said, they just get thrown at everything. You go to a doctor for anything. Antibiotics, steroids. Antibiotics, steroids. Antibiotics, steroids. And like, it's crazy. It's insane. It feels like it's all they do sometimes. It's nuts. It's
so
I want
to tell you this story, man, because you were talking about steroids. So last summer, and I've told this story on the podcast before, but last summer I got stung by a yellow jacket or something on my foot. I don't know. But my ankle swole up, and so I went to the doctor because I didn't know. It's been a while since I've been stung by something like that, and I didn't know how much swelling was appropriate. Like I didn't know if this is something that need to be concerned about. I think it was actually like 3 different stings on the same foot. So I went to the doctor and I was like, just trying to get this checked out or whatever. They tried to give me whatever the steroid was, the anti-inflammatory to help with the swelling. And I said, well, let me do this. Let me see if my body can handle it. Just give it a week or so and just see what happens. Yep. But I asked the doctor that was there about cold plunging. I was like, cold plunge, because I do a cold plunge routinely. And I was like, this is supposed to help with inflammation and stuff like that. She was like, and she said to me, this person being a doctor, she was probably in her mid-40s, that cold plunging was not safe, that I didn't need to do that. That she asked me, where did I learn that from? And I didn't know how to tell this person that, this is like a common thing in professional athletes, like cold plunging. And I think it's been around for centuries, man. Cold plunging has dates back to like the early Chinese era. I don't know where it came from specifically, but it's been around for a while. But like, I'm like, I want to see if my body will handle this before I just pop a pill. And I never did take the steroid. I mean, it went down like after a week. It took care of itself.
Imagine that. And if you did take the steroid, you know what it still would have done? Probably went down after a week. Or it's like,
yeah. But it's crazy. But like, I was going to ask you this too, because I want to get your opinion on this. It's crazy because this is like, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast too. This is like this overnight mentality that we have now. Like, there is a pill for everything. I know a person right now who is younger than me. I'm 31. This person is younger than me, and this person is talking about experimenting or whatever a person does with anabolic steroids because they want to put on muscle. I'm like, bro, first of all, time out. Can we address some other shit first? What's your diet look like? How much do you sleep? What do you spend your free time doing? How much sunlight do you get? Like, can we just not go directly to the medication or the drug or the whatever it is? I mean, like, I am all for supplementation, but I'm also, what I'm all for is the behaviors first, the lifestyle changes first. Like, you should not just be taking a pill because you have a headache, or because you feel like there's an infection, or because you pop ibuprofen or Tylenol chronically, and you're just like eating the lining of your stomach. Like, there's so many different ways behavioral and lifestyle that I feel like that we can try before we get to that point, man.
Yeah, everyone wants a quick hack. Everyone wants the lazy way out. Everyone wants the easy solution, the get rich quick scheme. Everyone's got TikTok brain. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work, and I'm not talking about jobs. I'm talking about just putting in effort, good, honest effort, moving towards your goal. And steroids are obviously an interesting thing. If like they're obviously going to be able to get a body beyond where just diet alone can get it. Like anyone that disagrees with that is dumb. Like they can get you to a bigger, more muscly, place than otherwise. But like you said, if you don't have everything else right, then yeah, you're just being dumb. You're just being dumb and lazy. It is the honest truth of it. And it's such a symptom of the greater societal mental lack that is TikTok brain. Like everyone's just zapped. Everyone's just zapped and lazy. Yeah.
You mentioned something that I do want to touch. Well, I guess this whole conversation right here about hormones, especially for guys, because we see like I think testosterone since the 60s has declined by some crazy percentage, man. It's like 50% or 40%. I mean, it's something crazy since the 60s. Testosterone has went completely down. In your, I guess your company, your work, do you help people at all with that? Because I don't know if you focus specifically on like cancer or if you guys kind of go into other areas. I mean, I guess the question is, do you have any resources for the hormone optimization? And maybe not, and that's okay. I'm just curious, just while we're here.
Yeah, over our almost 50 years, we've certainly accrued an abundance of resources and links to click on, whether they are internal things that we've done or external to us that are good information as well, in mostly any topic. And we certainly do discuss hormones because hormones are very much relevant to cancer and very much relevant to all matters of life, whether you're male or female. Your hormonal balance is absolutely essential and a critical foundational element to everything else that you'll be experiencing in life, be it on the physical side of health or the mental side of health. It's absolutely an essential component. So yeah, I'm sure we have some hormonal links floating around.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that because when we think about hormones, testosterone, estrogen, that kind of thing, we just think about really, I guess, vitality, fertility, that kind of thing. We don't think about the longevity of those hormones. All right, let's do this. Let's take a break really quick, and I guess when we come back, I want to get into maybe the prevention of cancer, because I feel like that's going to be an interesting part of this conversation. But we'll take a break really quick, and we'll be right back.
Cool.
People test like the pH quality of water. Like they'll have like 10 different brands of water, and they'll do a pH test on it, and it's like that you can see the different variations of the acidity in the water.
Yeah, pH is an interesting thing, and testing for it is certainly not a expensive and an inaccessible thing. It's very easy to test the pH of water. Anyone that's maintained a pool at their house would know. It's a very quick thing to test. The pH thing is a very interesting conversation. It's another thing that's very kind of overblown and overhyped, especially through very good marketing by certain brands of water machines that, their whole claim is that they can alter the pH of the water. There's a huge push behind this alkaline water. Alkaline water, alkaline. It's a nice buzzword, right? Ooh, alkaline. Most people don't even know what it means. Most people don't even know it means on the pH scale on that certain level. Alkaline water can do a lot of disservice to yourself. Your body's organs and systems all have their own independent pH level that maintains them in a state of good health. Your stomach included, and especially. It takes a certain pH to break down certain foods. Your stomach acid is, acidic. So what happens to acid when you put a bunch of alkaline water in it? Are you diluting your stomach acid and now making it more difficult to actually digest food, which can lead to a whole host of other problems? Perhaps. Now, are some people's environments of their stomach overly acidic? So perhaps they could benefit from lowering that or changing that acidity? Yeah, perhaps. But alkaline water is a very fantastically marketed thing And it's been very kind of hyped up and I really think overblown to the disservice of a lot of unconscious users of it.
So my understanding behind alkaline water is that there's two different, I guess, schools of thought about this. Is the water being alkaline, it's easier for the body to absorb it with it being in an alkaline state. I don't know if that's true or not. But then also your body, I think there's some sort of evidence or studies or whatever that if your body is in an alkaline state, it's harder for diseases to survive. I think that's the theory.
Yes, so there is credence to that, to my knowledge. Again, I haven't done the studies myself, so I'll always say allegedly, right? And so, yes, in an acidic state of a cell that's not supposed to be acidic, then yes, it is said that cancer and other diseases and ailments can certainly thrive. But again, certain areas of your body are supposed to be alkaline, certain ones are supposed to be acidic. So this absolute war on acidity at all levels and in all areas of your body is kind of missing the point. And again, it's kind of like it's too broad of a brush to use on the topic. Certain areas of your body should be acidic and certain of your areas of your body shouldn't be. And if the ones that are, aren't, and if the ones that aren't are, you're going to have problems in either direction. So yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah. This is a really good way to shift into, I think, the next area, which is prevention of cancer and this kind of thing. So Gary Brecka, talking about the alkaline, the acidity and stuff like that, to mention Gary Brecka again, he says that most diseases are, let me see if I can phrase this the way he says it. Most diseases in the body start from an oxygen depleted environment. Do you, just in the things that you guys have researched and the resources that you have, do you see some truth in that like something like cancer being either starting or surviving in an oxygen depleted environment?
Again, I wouldn't, it's hard to, like, these kind of catchphrases and things, they're so like catchy, right? They're so awesome to like want to get behind and be like, boom, found the magic bullet, found the solution. I need oxygen, right? Is oxygen absolutely fundamental to life? Well, force yourself to stop breathing for a bit and let me know. Like, we need oxygen. And most people don't even have their breathing right. Most people don't even have their oxygen delivery systems optimized or at all healthy, coming from the level of breathing in the first place. Now, it's very common to hear of and see like, breathing exercises, certain types of breathing, practices, whatever. And a lot of people very much overlook them. And they are very powerful. Now, again, there's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all solution of if you do this breathing practice in the morning, then, you're going to live 10 years longer. Like, I don't know if I'd get behind that. But being aware of our breathing and our breath, are we breathing shallow 24/7 or are we breathing properly deep? Are we breathing through our mouth or are we inhaling through our nose? What's going on in our systems? Are we able to breathe freely or are we massively congested for some reason where the oxygen can't even get past here and then it kind of stops? How's your rib cage? Are the muscles in your abdomen and torso and back contracted and locked up in a way that perhaps prevents a full breath from occurring? Probably in more people than realize. Are you breathing shallowly within your body, only allowing the air to kind of get here? Or are you really focusing on expanding the lungs and getting your full lungs open and expanded to receive that oxygen? There's a lot of things that go into breathing that people can get wrong. Absolutely. And yeah, so perhaps a lack of oxygen and proper oxygen could be responsible for a whole large amount of health problems. It starts at how you are getting it in, how you are able to get it in, and then how it's being distributed through your body, which has different systems that can be maintained.
I think oxygen is like an obvious one. I think most people understand that we need oxygen. But what's crazy is like oxygen is like has a positive effect on the body, and then like the breath, the way you breathe has a positive effect on the mind. Because it's amazing to me that you can change your mental state almost based on how you breathe. If you're stressed, if you breathe a certain way, if you need to get it excited for something, you breathe a certain way. If you're in the gym working out, you breathe a certain way. Like, it's just crazy how your breath can alter your mind. And anybody who's ever done like jujitsu as a beginner, sometimes that's all you can do is breathe, man. If you don't breathe, you're gonna pass out. Like, if you got a guy, if you're in a headlock or something, man, and you're just like, that's all you can do is breathe.
Yeah.
But that's
Oh,
like,
absolutely. It's so powerful. You can change your mental state. You can make yourself physically stronger through making your breath better, you know? And it's huge. And people don't realize how much is going on behind breathing. Breathing isn't just air in, air out. That's it. And, you know, okay, now you're alive. Good job. When you have your breath work down and you have your breathing proper, it's actually a detoxification method. It's a detoxification avenue. You exhale toxins. If your body's systems of purging them out is proper, you actually allegedly exhale fat. When you are losing weight and burning fat, again, it's been alleged, I haven't done the study myself, but apparently fat loss happens through breathing it out. Where does it go? Where does burned fat go? Apparently you breathe it out. Allegedly. Very interesting.
it is. Well, I don't know the number. Like, they say that the brain is like 8% of the body weight, but it uses 20% of the calories. I wonder how many calories breathing actually takes, because it's something that you're not conscious of, and it has to take energy. So I wonder what percent. I wish there was a number I could see of, the brain takes 20% of the calories, breathing takes what? It's at least 20%, man. I bet it's at least 20%.
Calories are an interesting thing. I don't really subscribe to the concept of calories for the human body in general, but there's an interesting equation that's going on because, yeah, perhaps the process of breathing is going to expend energy, but it's also creating energy and harnessing the energy that you do have if done right. So what's the trade-off? The final kind of net result would be an interesting number to look at.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it does bring energy in. All right, so prevention of cancer, and if you work with any other prevention of any other disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart conditions, we can go there too. But what's your thoughts on prevention of this? I know we might probably touched on a lot of it already, but
yeah, and there's a lot of comorbidities and things that kind of ping pong back and forth, and contributory factors that are similar within a lot of different ailments. But honestly, the real answer in most things in life is very simple and is not exciting. None of these answers are about to be exciting, and they're kind of what we've touched on already. The same things that we do an audit of are the same things that, if you are addressing them properly in the first place and maintaining them in a good and healthy state, are going to do very well in preventing you from experiencing a state of cancer. So again, are you eating good stuff? Are you eating bad stuff? Are you slathering on bad stuff to your body? Are you slathering on good stuff? Are you getting enough sunlight? We are meant to be getting sunlight. Are you how are you living mentally and emotionally? What kind of relationship environments are you in? What's your work environment, right? Like, all of these things, and I guess we could go into those side of things because those are the more kind of less thought about things, the stress, the trauma. So emotions are energy. That's not difficult to comprehend, right? Everyone's felt angry and felt charged up, or felt sad and felt that kind of energy, or felt joyous and happy and felt that energetic charge. Emotions are energy in different capacities. That's very kind of easy to comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we understand a basic law of physics, if you will, and law of reality is that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be moved around or transformed or changed forms. And so if we experience a very intense negative emotional charge, and we don't have a healthy avenue of discharging that energy and getting it out of us and purging it or transmuting it, well, where does it go? Our bodies will protect us, because they want to protect us, by tucking that energy away. And this is something that's been studied and observed and talked about in cultures for hundreds of years. You can get to the concept of chakras, of meridian lines, of energetic centers. There's lots of different kind of specific languages we could use to talk about the same thing. But essentially, different emotional energetic charges and different types of emotional energy will tuck away in different parts of our bodies specifically. And if those emotional energies are not tended to, if they're not purged, if they're not resolved, if they are continuing to build up, well, there's only so much a body can take until that tucked away energy turns that area toxic and potentially cancerous. Because what is cancer? It's just our own cells that have mutated due to toxicity in some sort of form. And so if our body is storing this charge, this negativity in a certain area, well, it's only a matter of time, perhaps, before that area turns cancerous if that thing isn't addressed. And this has been scientifically observed. And again, this is some more secret sauce directly from our course. We talk about the emotional correlates that have been scientifically observed to be correlated with specific instances of cancer. And I could give some examples of that if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So they're not that difficult to comprehend. Again, truth and reality is quite simple. It's not necessarily easy, but it's easy to understand. The dots connect very plainly. So some very common ones, a very common type of cancer is colon cancer. And the types of people that very often find themselves getting colon cancer are people that are actually have trouble letting go of the past. People with a strong victim mentality. People that have that, I'm this way because this affected me, and this happened when I was growing up, and she did that to me, and he did that to me, and so I'm this way, and I'm upset about it still, and I'll never get over it. And, you know, like a big part of their personality is the bad things that have happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's their like cop-out card that they play all the time. They're genuinely kind of disturbed by something that's happened to them or around them, or, you know, they feel wronged by. And they just carry that with them very heavily. And that's like, everyone knows someone that's like a key part of their personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so those people very interestingly find themselves with instances of colon cancer very often. So where's the connection there? How does that make sense? Why is that where our body kind of correlates with that kind of emotion? Well, what is the colon? The colon is a physical organ that is responsible, or at least plays a large part, in the physical elimination of waste. The elimination and digestion and removal of our food waste. Well, what are these people having trouble doing? They're having trouble eliminating the emotional waste. They're just holding on to it. They're uptight. They're emotionally constipated. Highly likely they'll find themselves physically constipated as well very often. And, you know, our body gives us signs and symptoms. Our body will very gently give us a warning. It'll put a little, you know, check engine light on. A lot of people end up ignoring that because, well, they don't understand the correlation between our physical vessels and our more emotional and esoteric selves. When those check engine lights are ignored, yeah, your body will keep going. It'll keep chugging along. You might try a quick and easy hack or patch for that physical symptom, thinking that it is the problem, ignoring the actual root cause, allowing the root cause to get worse and just provoking the symptom even more. And then the body says, okay, check engine light is being ignored. It'll start to, you know, raise a more intense red flag. Perhaps your bowel movements will get worse, will get less regular, will be, you know, more painful perhaps. A lot of times those get ignored because people don't understand that it's actually your body screaming out for help in a different capacity. The red flags get ignored, and then the sirens start ringing, and the alarm bells start ringing, and then all of a sudden you're going to your doctor and they're saying, hey, you've got colon cancer. Happens to a lot of people. It's very interesting. That's just,
you said there are studies on this, like there are studies that link these connections?
Yep. Every single thing that we talk about in our course at BeatCancer is sources cited, has proper scientific referencing to view. Absolutely.
So are there any other connections that are kind of like this, like certain forms of cancer?
Every single one. Every single one. And like I said, they're not that difficult to comprehend. So women who have trouble with their children, whether that's death of a child, severe illness in a child, massive fight and falling out, you know, a hindered relationship with a child. Perhaps they're worried about their child financially. Perhaps they have a missing child. Lots of different ways that a mother can be very overtly concerned and have a lot of charged up energy regarding their child in a negative way. And so these women often find themselves with a breast cancer diagnosis soon after a significant event or a prolonged exposure to this kind of stress. Now, again, there's always other contributory factors, or there's often other contributory factors. There's a lot of things that are very harmful to a woman's breast health, be it underwire bras, blocking up the lymphatic system. There's lymph node pathways and lymphatic fluid that's meant to be moving around. And when you put a harsh wire there, you're actually blocking that. There's, of course, the toxic deodorants, off-the-shelf deodorants that are a very quick pathway from the armpit to the breast. And the breasts are meant to store things. So they do store a lot of physical toxins as well. So when I'm saying these correlations, I'm not saying this is always the case 100% of the time as only the contributory factor. But again, it's been known for centuries in other civilizations and cultures. It's also been modern science approved and correlations observed. So these are important to consider as well. And so, again, what's the breast? The breast is, of course, inherently in a female, a very connecting pathway between the mother and child relationship. A mother nurses and feeds their child via the breast. Well, I mean, hopefully a lot of modern mothers don't, but they should be. And that pathway physically is correlated with that pathway energetically.
So is there a connection with like brain cancer? Do these people have, is there some sort of, I guess, connection with those kinds of people emotionally?
Nothing's random, man. Yeah, all of them have a particular connection. Before I would speak on that one, I would want to brush up on the specifics of it. It's a lot of information, or perhaps someone could always check out our course where that's a very large part of our course because it's a very important thing for someone to consider. And so, yeah, a lot more explained. There's our presentation of the course itself in that lesson, and then there's also additional readings on that very interesting topic. So, yeah, nothing's random. Nothing is random.
Well, so the reason I'm asking that, and I guess maybe this is the whole reason we're talking about this, if there are connections, there are studies that there are connections between some sort of inability to regulate these emotions, or some sort of prolonged holding on to these emotions, or whatever it is, it sounds like a good prevention tactic would be to handle these, like resolve these emotions. You know what I mean? Like, so for the colon cancer thing, like those people, it sounds like it would be a beneficial thing to learn how to let go of the past. And that's obviously a beneficial thing for many reasons, but it sounds like that's one of the ways, at least might be one of the ways to prevent colon cancer. Same way with the women with the breast cancer situation, to repair that situation with the child, or whatever it is. I understand if the child's passed away, that's a little bit different story. But it sounds like this. What I'm trying to say is, it sounds like the prevention is in these examples. I mean, just reverse it.
100%. Absolutely. That's the key, and that's why our course and the things that we talk about are very useful on both sides of the equation, on the healing side or on the prevention side. Because, like we were saying, if you're not aware of these things, then you don't know what that check engine light means. Mm-hmm. You don't know what the red flag is. You don't even know that it's trying to tell you something. Our bodies try to tell us things. Our bodies want us to be well, but they can't talk to us. They're not going to just like poof a voice in your head and say, hey, you need to be doing this. I can't take this anymore. But the signs and the symptoms are there. They are a lot of things that people think are ailments are actually symptoms. And when we comprehend that, even if you just make that mental shift, then when you experience something, a temporary state of unwellness in any regard, well, then you could start to look into what might be bringing you to that state. What is your body trying to tell you? It's very common for cancer patients to end up saying that cancer is the best thing that ever happened to them. Because, like I said, it's the sirens and the alarm bells that are screaming at someone that you need to make a change and you need to make it now. You cannot continue down this road. I can't take it any longer. I've been putting up with the abuse that you're abusing me with. This is your body speaking to you. And, this regard for so long, and I just can't do it anymore. Please change or suffer the consequences. That might be a fatality. It's essential to listen to our body. Our body's trying to be well, but you got to give it the right ingredients. You can't put, Coca-Cola in your car's gas tank and expect it to run right. You
No,
can't.
It might clean your engine out though.
It might. It's a very good industrial degreaser, but yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, man, because we talked about food, we talked about stress, we talked about, environmental factors, and now it seems like even emotions are related to this thing with the cancer and all this kind of stuff. And this is where it's amazing that we've talked about food and we've talked about all these basic needs, and this is probably the one that people are not going to like the most. But technology, the cell phones, the Wi-Fi, the 5G, the radiation, this kind of thing. Do you guys see in your documents or your research, do you see a link with that? Because I think that's a huge, I don't think we understand how bad this radiation is from the Wi-Fi and the 5G and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very serious. It's very serious. So this gets to a very esoteric conversation if you really want to comprehend it at a full level. And so everything is a matter of vibration and frequency. Everything. Mm-hmm. The reason that I am able to speak and be heard is because my vocal cords and the breath coming out of me is resonating in a certain way that's producing certain wavelengths. And that's the only reason that this piece of technology is able to capture my voice. And then your speakers are vibrating at a certain frequency that is then relaying it to you. Mm-hmm. Our voice is frequency. The only reason you're able to see me and I'm able to see you is because of visible light frequencies that are, projecting this picture and this reality that our brain then is able to interpret through those frequency antennas that are our eyes, and then give you in your mind some sort of mental image of what you're looking at and what's in front of you. Mm-hmm. But physical matter is also frequency. Cells, things, like atoms are vibrating at a frequency. Again, and this is something that you can connect the esoteric side to the scientific side, right? Atoms, electrons, they're not stagnant. This desk that I'm looking at, this computer screen, it's frequency. Mm-hmm. It's moving at an atomic level. It's very interesting, right? And so everything is a matter of frequency, and every one of our cells have a particular frequency to them as well. And then our overall body as a whole has an energetic field and a frequency to it. And so frequency has been shown to affect things physically, whether that's water exposed to certain frequencies and then used to water certain plants, does certain things to that plant if it's injected or exposed to certain frequencies, or it could actually kill the plant if exposed to other frequencies. Water frozen that has been exposed to certain frequencies has been shown to form beautiful crystalline structures in that ice, versus other not so nice frequencies have been shown to show chaotic frequencies in that ice, and then it's like a non-symmetrical, nice forming of that snowflake or ice crystal. Again, I'll say allegedly. I haven't done these studies. They have been alleged to have been repeated by different third parties. So take it for what you will. Perhaps do it yourself and find out. But let's roll with it as if it's true. So if frequency can affect water in that way, and our bodies are whatever percent they say water, it's a majority at least, why would the frequencies that we're being exposed to not be able to affect our physical health and the state of the water in our cells? This is to break it down and put it very basically. So what is exposing us to frequencies? Well, there's natural frequency and there's artificial frequency. Everything is frequency. So nature resonates in a certain way. The sounds of nature via a waterfall, via a stream, the birds chirping, the wind blowing and rustling the leaves, these have certain frequencies. Perhaps these are the frequencies that we're meant to be absorbing and resonating with, and then they heal our body. Artificial induced frequencies via technology don't inherently have to be bad, but they are not natural. And so perhaps a lot of them are presenting us with harmful frequencies that were not ever designed to exist in nature in a way, and not necessarily ever exist for us to be exposed to. And so this has a lot of different ramifications. There's a lot of different ways it looks like. Yeah, of course, Wi-Fi. What are you exposing yourself to in your home or in your work environment? 5G, all the different cell frequencies, whatever. Yeah, they're powerful and they exist everywhere. Like you are bathing in that frequency. And just like you wouldn't want to bathe in water, that's not necessarily good for you. We're bathing in frequencies all the time that might not necessarily be resonant and good for us and might be affecting us at an energetic level. But it's far beyond that if you want to talk about frequency and, EMF health, right? There's different things that you could expose not just your body at large to, but your eyes. Screens don't have to be as bad as they are in the default settings. Every single one of my devices, all of my 5 screens and my phone have night shift on. So my screens are a slightly warmer hue than their default settings. They're less blue because it's been, again, alleged and shown or whatever that screens in their default settings, LED screens, present an array of colors, of course. That's why we could see a variety of colors through those screens. But they've been shown to include blue frequencies outside of our visible light spectrum. And because they're outside of our visible light spectrum, our body can't process them. Our eyes can't process them. But we're still getting exposed to them through our screens. And again, the wavelengths of this particular type of blue light is said to permeate the eyes, damage the eyes themselves, but then also irritate and disturb the brain as well, because of course there's a quick path from our eyes to our brain because our brain is trying to decode what our eyes are being exposed to. And so simple things can prevent us or at least alleviate us from some damaging frequencies in a lot of different regards. Then, there's all these different things that you could do, such as shutting off your Wi-Fi if you're not using it, or especially when you're sleeping. There's a lot of different ways that we can manage our frequency health externally, but a lot of it's internally as well. Because thoughts, emotions, they all carry frequency as well. And so what kind of frequency are you generating from within and then exposing yourself to and then resonating from within, right? It's easy to demonize the external stuff. It's easy to say, it's the screens, it's the 5G, it's the Wi-Fi. That's why, I'm sick. My frequencies are bad because of that. Meanwhile, a lot of people are walking around resonating internally in a state of constant negativity or constant stress in a negative way or constant, spewing of bullshit or constant exposing themselves to negative media, be it TV shows about murder and crime and rape and all these bad things happening, or music about all these same topics. But what are you inputting into your own energetic frequency, and then what are you resonating yourself? You got to consider all these things at all these different levels if you want to talk about frequency and health. But yeah, it's absolutely essential. How are you vibrating? What's the vibe?
So, man, I first of all, I don't think people understand how important light is and how it's almost like, I don't know this. I'm just making this up, but just from what I know, it's almost like the visual system. Like I would say, if I had to guess, I would be willing to bet that at least 50% of the visual system is to perceive light, because without light, nothing exists. I don't think anything, like you said, the only reason we see anything is because light reflects off of it in a certain way. That's why black, it absorbs all the light and there's nothing there because it absorbs the light. So it's like the perception of light is literally our sight. Like everything that we see is at least this is my understanding of it, is how it reflects the light, or the light bounces, or how it absorbs or not absorbs, and then like sunlight, like how sunlight has a effect on our circadian rhythms, and it can literally alter your cells if you view or do not view sunlight. I'm talking about not necessarily, not just on your skin, like with your eyes.
Yep.
But we were talking about you were talking about the molecular change in water and the frequency. I don't know if you've heard, I'm sure you've heard of this before. There have been experiments where people have taken a speaker and like played, like a hateful message or an evil message to water, and then like a loving message to water. And then I think they've done this with plants also. But we have to assume that it's not like the water understand. Like there are, I don't know how many different languages in the world there are, but it's not like the water understands the language. It's like the frequency, to use your words, the frequency, I would say the energetic vibe that the words put out. It's almost like that has a concrete existence to it, because the water, I'm going to assume that the water doesn't understand the English language or Spanish or any other language. It's like that frequency that is being spoken to, because when these people do these experiments, they play these messages on repeat for however long it is, and then they look at the water under a microscope, and it's literally different. There's been people who have done like with plants. Some plants do a lot better when they hear inspirational, positive messages versus the opposite. And it's just like, that's insane to me, because these things clearly do not understand language, but it's like the energetic vibe that is being absorbed through this. And so it's like everything that we say, and this kind of goes off on a tangent. You talk about metaphysical for a minute. Everything that we say, we have to be careful with the words that we use, about ourselves, about other people, about, our environment, our future, our life, whatever. If a person says, if they're trying to do something, make a career, a business, family, or whatever, if they say, oh, well, I'm not smart enough for that, or I'm not, I'm not XYZ enough for that. Okay. That's a very big, that what you say has a bigger meaning than what you think. Maybe you're not, you don't know enough yet. You're not educated enough yet. You haven't put in enough time to understand this thing. But to say that you are not smart enough, or you're not capable enough, or you're not, pretty enough or strong enough, or whatever it is, these things are very powerful. Like the words that we use are very powerful.
Yep.
And I think this is obvious in these, when we talk about, these changes to these waters, and plants and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. That's exactly the kind of thing I was alluding to at the beginning. And like you said, the water isn't necessarily comprehending the specific language, but the specific language doesn't matter. You could probably say and make up a whole new language and present it to that water. But if your intent behind that is saying a certain thing, negative or positive, the results will probably be the same. And this is the same reason why someone that's, any sort of consciously aware of energy and kind of, is just a conscious person, can interact with someone that's speaking an actual total different language and also be getting exactly what they're saying. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but there's sometimes where it's like, I don't know what I don't speak Mandarin. I don't speak Russian. My Spanish is decent, but like, I don't know these words, but I know that vibe. Like, you don't need to know the words to be even having a conversation with someone. It's vibes, it's energy, it's real. And so, at a fundamental level, the water in our cells responds in that certain way. It doesn't matter what language you're saying, but what words are you exposing yourself to, especially in spoken form. Yeah, internally, our own thoughts are within our body, and so that's within our cells. And so where our energy goes, our body follows. But when you speak it and you form that physical vibration of it, and that's what you're being exposed to at even more, then that's even worse. And so it comes from yourself. What's your kind of literary diet of self-talk? But then also, what are you allowing people to say? I don't expose myself to bullshit language from others either. I don't allow it. I don't allow people to put me in a negative box without being checked.
Yep.
And it's important. And because if you don't correct these things, then one, you're doing a disservice to the person that you're with, because then they're not getting this important lesson of perhaps what they're unconscious of in the first place. But two, if you're letting that seep into your brain unchallenged, your brain, understands that, well, you didn't correct that, so it must be right. You got to be careful. And this is so many levels that we could get into with it, because there are very interesting experiments as well, again, allegedly, that it doesn't even have to be consciously picked up on and digested by your ears to be heard and to be reacted to and responded to. And this is where subliminals come into play. There are subliminal frequencies that can be used benevolently or otherwise that can also play an effect. Again, just like you don't have to understand the language of someone, you don't have to consciously be hearing the words to be absorbing certain energies. And this is a very interesting conversation where we could get into different things like sleep meditations, where it's just, rainfall sounds that allegedly have certain subliminals in. And I have very interesting experiences with those. But then it also brings to the question, what kind of subliminals are perhaps in common media, in movies, in music?
Yeah, so there's 2 points here that I want to touch on. First of all, I've heard experiments of, we're talking about the music or the sounds played to the water. I've heard of people meditating over a glass of water and then drinking that water after they meditate. And so it's not even just really the sound. It's like the intention, like the energy, the vibe. I don't know how often, I don't know if you've ever meditated. I used to meditate quite often, and it's if you can get to the point where you can do it consistently and do it the right way, it's a powerful experience. But yeah, I've heard of these people meditating over the water or praying over the water or whatever it is, and then drinking that water, and supposedly, the body takes in the whatever the changes of the water. But you were also talking about what did you say right there at the very end? You were saying what did you say at the end of what you just said?
We were talking about.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
We were talking about like certain things being harmful to think, harmful to say, or even harmful to hear. We're talking about subliminals in certain medias.
Yep. So one thing that I always say to people too is, like, we talked about this a little bit earlier, the importance of starting a fitness plan. You don't just filter your diet. It's very common for somebody to join the gym, and then a couple weeks later, they also start to exit like nightclubs or bars or places where people are, consuming alcohol or cigarettes and look, I don't have anything against alcohol or cigarettes, but I'm just saying it's a common occurrence, or even like limiting the fast food they eat. It's a common thing to see somebody start a fitness plan, and then not only are they filtering the diet, what they eat, they're also get to the point where they filter out mentally and emotionally what they consume. And then you can do this, like we're talking about technology, the harmful radiation. You can filter out your technology, like what you consume on social media. You can train your algorithm to give you things that you think are beneficial to you. I mean, you can get on TikTok and you can see nonsense about, whatever celebrity is doing this, what happened. Like you can do that, or you can interact with the videos that is going to bring you inspirational content, educational content. Like you can train your social media algorithm. People say, oh, well, we get on social media and we're just inundated by negativity. I mean, I think that's possible. That's very possible. It's out there. I mean, it's like social media and the internet is like the negativity is everywhere. There's no shortage of it. But the beautiful thing about the algorithm is you can train it to give you what you think is beneficial to you. And so it doesn't have to be negative. And so all that to say this, you can filter out everything that you're consuming, like what you were talking about earlier. You filter these things out. It's not just the diet. It's not just what you put in your body, water or food wise. It's also the energetic stuff. You can filter these things out.
Yeah, exactly. It's so easy to blame the external stuff. And like I said, is there an abundance of external things that are harming you and perhaps wanting to harm you? Yeah, absolutely. But there's also the personal accountability and responsibility to manage your consumption of anything. And so, yeah, is the default that's going to be pushed on you on YouTube or, other streaming platforms and social medias, drag shows and makeup tutorials? Yeah, probably. But can you train your algorithm to present you better things? Yeah, also that. Do they censor really good stuff? Yeah, absolutely. But can you still find it? Yes. And so there's this excuse and these copings that go on of, you know, people in the conscious community, or you know, people that want to do better, of, you know, putting the responsibility and the blame on these external factors such as these social media companies and tech giants. But you still have responsibility and accountability to manage it, you know, accordingly. It's both sides of the equation. Absolutely. I want to go back to a few more things on light, because it's very interesting. Before we get too far off, light really is everything. Light is life.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain equipment that can observe the bioluminescent spark of life that happens at conception, when the soul enters the physical realm and enters that embryo. But then there's also certain equipment, perhaps that same equipment, that can observe the light that's within food, and how light can be cooked out of food of certain ways and in certain regards. And it really is everything. And that's why it's not only important to consider the light that we are intaking and inputting, but also how we are lighting up a room, right? Our language, even our everyday language, already points to this, even if we're not aware of it. Like I just said, everyone knows that phrase, or everyone's kind of felt that experience of someone walking in and lighting up a room.
Mm-hmm.
What do we say when something feels negative? We say it has a dark energy. There's not light. There's no light. The light's missing, right? Like our common language is not that far off from telling us exactly what's going on in reality. And so in the light consumption conversation, what kind of light are we surrounding ourselves with? This is such a huge change that someone can make in their life. And it's one that I love to talk about because it's so actionable. What kind of lights are in your home? The common default these days is LED. LED lights are cool. They're cool. They're very bright. They're low energy consumption. They could be all these different colors with the change of a remote. Like, yeah, they're very cool for different, you know, regards. But functionally, your default lights in your home should be incandescent, OG, standard, halogen light bulbs. A filament
Yeah.
burns, it heats up with that electricity, that creates a glow. That's your light. That's natural light. It's not the sun. The sun is the natural light, but it's as close as you could get to it, because it's just energy and electricity causing a glow. That's good light for you. Yes, is it going to disrupt you a little bit if you're still exposed to that when it's supposed to be nighttime out? Yeah, probably. Candlelight is even better than that. But obviously, in 2024, you're going to have to go to great lengths to light yourself via candlelight all the time. Some people do it. But these LED lights, again, they're an unnatural frequency. They can be better or worse via their temperature. If they're a warmer temperature, they're probably a little better than if they're that neutral kind of like medical white, or even a bluish hue. But then it's also beyond that. These lights, the LEDs, they're not constantly on. They actually flicker. And that's why if you've ever seen a high quality footage recording of like an LED light via the headlights of a car, or like the running lights of a car, or any sort of screen, you see it flickering. It's like, now it's faster on and off than our eyes can actually process. But again, it doesn't mean our eyes aren't being exposed to that flickering. And that is another big reason why, after prolonged exposure to LED lights and this constant flickering that we can't consciously see, but are subconsciously being exposed to and affected by, we might find ourselves being a little more irritable, or having that headache, or having that just like, God, my eyes hurt, because they're being exposed to these things. Light is huge. Light is absolutely life. And so our diet of light is such a huge thing. And that's such an easy actionable to act upon. Replace your lights with regular incandescent light bulbs. And even that they're making harder. I think there was something passed some time ago trying to outlaw them or ban them, and they're probably going to go in that direction even more. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
hold on to those light bulbs.
Anything that's beneficial, let's just ban it.
Yeah,
I'll tell you something, man. I put in my bathroom, I put a red light bulb, just the bulb, not the actual red light panel, but just a red light bulb. And that combined with like a hot shower before you go to bed, man, it has significantly improved my sleep.
Yeah.
Which I do a red light bed a couple times a week, the one that's supposed to help with the collagen in the skin and stuff. But you were talking about the light bulbs. I can't think of any room more depressing than walking into a room that has no windows, there's no natural sunlight, and then they just have this bright ass light bulb just like hanging from this, like, you know what I mean? Like no natural light. Like that's not, it's just like, it's hard to explain because they make these lights that are supposed to be like super bright. You know what I mean? Like they're just like, it's supposed to mimic natural light. I guess, I don't know. It's like a white light, if that makes sense. But those things are depressing to me, man. Like those super bright lights, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, that's not, I don't know if it's because I spend a lot of time outdoors and my body can just like tell that it's not natural. I don't know, but it's just like, it's that I can't think of a room more depressing than that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Listen, you go back to nature, you go back to before we built all these sticks and bricks structures and locked ourselves in them all the time. Like, life is in its natural form presenting us everything that we need. And emphasis on need. Not like, oh, it's good for us. No, we need it. Everyone understands if you don't give a plant sunlight, yeah, it's probably going to die. Same thing,
Right.
man. It's the same thing. And people are out here being afraid of the sun, being psyoped into thinking the sun is some damaging and harmful thing that is just bad and, should be blocked out, and, block it out from yourself as much as you can. Wear this chemical, sunblock to block the sun from your skin. Wear these sunglasses to block the sun from your eyes. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, the psyop that's been pulled over on everyone to have them start blocking out the sun in the skies. Or it's been going on for quite some time, not even starting. But I want to address the sunlight specifically in regards to sunglasses, because that's another actionable as well, and one that's actually huge, and one that's actually massively correlated with cancer as well. So people think, one, that the sun causes cancer. And that's just garbage, right? So what does the sun do? The sun is energy. The sun is powerful. And the sun will react with things. The sun will react with things. So what are you giving your body to react with the sun? What are you putting in your body that the sun can react with? Is your skin laden with a concoction of chemicals and toxins that the sun can react with and then burn? A lot of people, the answer is yes. So is the sun actually inherently damaging to your skin? I would say no. But can the sun be damaging to your skin by proxy because the toxins in your skin are reacting in such a way that is burning? Very interesting to consider.
That is interesting.
It's very interesting how people live lifestyles that detoxify themselves in a large regard. Suddenly they don't get sunburn anymore. It's crazy. Sunglasses, though. Oh, let me address the sunglasses real quick, though, because this is a huge one too. Okay. Sunglasses are cool. Like, sunglasses are cool. You look cool with sunglasses on if you get a great pair that looks good on you. But they're actually doing the opposite of what you think they're doing, and they're actually doing a great harm. Our body systems are intended to work and operate as a whole, as we are designed. We weren't designed with shades that we can pull down over ourselves, right? I think certain animals might be, but we are not. We got on and off. That's it. You can close them or open them. So with that in mind, what are we doing when we are putting sunglasses on and making our eyes receive a darker and less sunlit environment than the rest of our body is being exposed to? Perhaps our eyes are, besides being tools to receive visual light spectrum and have our mind process it so that we can see, perhaps they're also meters of light. Perhaps they're also meant to observe the environment that you are being exposed to so that your brain can prepare your body in all the other places accordingly. So perhaps when you put sunglasses on, your eyes don't receive the actual sunlight that you're being exposed to. Your brain doesn't get to understand what kind of bright, sunny environment that you're in, and your brain doesn't get to prepare your body's defenses and prepare your skin accordingly to be exposed to that sun. Perhaps that's contributing to sunburn and then, damage that's called skin cancer, etc. It's very interesting to
That
think
makes
about,
a
isn't
lot
it?
of sense. That actually does make a lot of sense. Because if you filter out the UV light from your eyes, if your body, like you said, if your body does, or if your brain doesn't know how to react because it can't see the UV light, but then it's on your skin, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So
The truth makes a lot of sense when you hear it.
you were talking about sunlight, and I had this question that I just kind of typed into DuckDuckGo here, the little search engine. And this map, man, I want to show you this because let me see here. I'm going to show you this map and see what you think about this.
I love a good map.
Can you see my screen right here?
Yeah, it's small. It's like half my screen, but
All
yeah.
right, let me see if I can.
I'll make my window bigger.
Can you still see this?
Yeah.
Is it a lot bigger now?
It's big enough.
Okay, so you see all the yellows and the reds, the oranges, and all that.
Yeah.
So what this is, and I'm not sure. This is. I just typed in testosterone because that was the easiest, quickest one. But this is from testosteronedecline.com. Maybe it's reliable. Don't know. But this is the average per this map is the average testosterone levels per country. And so the U.S. being on the lower end, I 100% believe that. But what you see over here, man, towards the middle of the map, what do you see with this red area, which is like the higher end of the scale? What do you think the connection is right there?
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that they're outside more, and when they're not in their mud huts, and not having a lot of toxins they're exposed to. But yeah, I imagine sunlight is a big part of it.
Yeah,
don't get mad at me. I know there's more in Africa than mud huts.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that's like the equator is somewhere around there, is it not? It's not. Yeah. It's not on this map, but it's. Dude, look at Russia. Look at or I guess this is Russia right here. This little is that part of Russia? I can't tell if that's.
I can't see your mouse, but Russia is orange there.
Is this little red spot right here? That's the highest. That and this little looks like the Middle East somewhere. Is that Asia? That's somewhere in Asia.
Again, I can't see your mouse, but yeah, the Middle East looks quite red. And, obviously there's a sunlight thing going on that funny shaped map, but there's also societal things going on. There's the environmental toxins. There's the common cultural practices that expose people to certain physical toxins, but there's also going to be a cultural thing. The people in those orange and red areas, generally speaking, are going to be living in an entirely different mental schema.
Mm-hmm.
They probably have better grasp of masculinity and femininity and living within those actual constructs instead of this, gender neutral soup that we live in America. Like testosterone is, a physical function, but it's by and large a spiritual and mental thing as well. You can't exist unnaturally as a man and not be living true to your masculine urges and tendencies and expect your testosterone to be high. Testosterone's fueled and is fueled by conquest.
Mm-hmm.
And when men are not living like men in every regard of their life, your testosterone is never going to be optimized. I don't care what biohacking you think you're going to do, what supplement you think you're going to take. Your testosterone is going to be shit if you're not living true to being a man. And I imagine in those areas that were darker red and orange, they probably more so do so on a general level.
Yeah, and so I just want to make this important distinction because it's testosterone is obviously important for health for the individual, but it's like to put the tinfoil hat back on again. If you are a government or an organization or a group of people who want to disempower people or enslave people or manipulate people, what is the best? Like, what do you? What is your best way to do that as far as taking away these people's form of the offense? Well, what you do is you make it where the military age fighting men cannot fight back. So, is this decline on testosterone? I mean, you have to think, man. Anybody who has lived through COVID and didn't saw what was actually going on and looks at the world and sees what's actually going on. It's almost like this decline in testosterone, especially since if that map was correct, especially since it's not happening in other countries. Is this part of a much bigger much more malicious plan. I hope not. But I mean, the question, like, you can't help but ask the question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You gotta kill the military age males or neuter them, mentally, physically, all the above, and yeah, that's how you keep control of a so-called peaceful society that
Because
doesn't
it's those people that rebel, man. It's those people that fight back against tyranny or whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't have those people to fight back, then I mean, what I don't know of a bigger form of defense other than taking away the other person's ability to attack.
or even desire to attack. And that comes in a lot of forms. A lot of people are so depressed and so self-centered and so capitulated and caught up with just garbage, not reality, that they don't even care. They don't even know they're being attacked. How could they ever think to defend themselves? They don't even think they are being attacked. They're not even living in reality. So yeah, this neutering of military age males has gone on in such a variety of ways. It comes from all angles. It comes right from birth in a quite physical way. It comes from the structures that were put in the educational system. It comes from what's purported as the supposed to be relationship structures, where essentially women are running everything, and that translates to the home, that translates to a work environment. Like, all of these things are set up, again, for men to not actually be men. And so simultaneously, there's this mental attack that's going on, while there's also the physical attack going on. They're attacking from all angles, and spiritual attack as well. It's absolutely no shortage of attack vectors, and it's been very effective. Perhaps that map itself is part of the psyop. Perhaps they want Americans to see that and then say, well, here I am. My testosterone's going to be low here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's levels to this. Perhaps the map itself is a lie and is a psyop.
I mean, it could be, but you talked earlier about, this conquest, this need for conquest for men. And I don't think a lot of men are doing that these days. No. I mean, I think that's leading to the rising depression that we're seeing in young men, especially young men, or men, but especially young men. That a lot of young men do not have this thing that they are driven for, whether it's a career or whatever it is, a life for themselves. Like they don't have this form of conquest. And then it's crazy because I have nothing against video games. Okay, I used to be an avid video game player. I don't have time for them these days. I got my own game going on. That's what I always say. But it's like these guys will get so involved in this video game, man. And what is that video game most of the time? It's some sort of adventure. It's some sort of, conquering, or this just conquest. And it's like, that is your biological nature. That's how you're wired. Like that, like you are wired to go out into the world and accomplish shit and bring home dinner for the family. Like that's how we got here. That's how our ancestors survived. And it's like that part, I feel like that part is missing because maybe there is a psyop going on, or maybe we've gotten so used to being comfortable and just going to the grocery store and getting a meal or whatever it is. And it's like everything has to be quick and easy right now. And it's we could talk about the dopamine system and how, this quick and easy dopamine, this immediate gratification, what the problem that has on mentality, especially for men. I mean, I think this is one of the big problems, man. It's just that this mission is missing for a lot of men. And I think that's where this mental health thing comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's a lot of attack vectors and there's a lot of things going on. I feel so badly for the young men of today because they're just very lost. They're so lost, and this environment is so hostile to them that a lot of them just give up. They see no hope on ever being financially free. They see no hope in ever having a good family or having a loving wife or having loving relationships with women. They see no hope in having a respectful band of brothers to stand beside in this world, so they just feel alone. They have no father figures a lot of the time, or if they do have a father that's around, they themselves are a neutered cuck that has nobody to look up to and aspire to be like. So yeah, these men out here, these young men and boys, they are just so lost. And so they just turn to degeneracy. They turn to gambling in all these different capacities. They turn to killing themselves a lot of the time, and it's very, very sad to see. And that's why I very much love working with young men that want to work with me and want to have a chat with me. And any mentoring that I could provide to a young man that's feeling lost, that genuinely wants to get on their shit and be better, I really want to be there for, because that's what we need, right? How can we expect a boy and then a young man to calibrate themselves within this world that is, one, setting up the default path for them to be absolutely wrecked in every regard, and two, not have any sort of guiding figure in force? We are not meant to be dropped in this world to just figure it out. So when we
Man,
don't have a father that we can aspire to be like, because themselves is a proper beacon of masculinity and is a proper guiding healthy force, then what the fuck do we do as young men? And that's something that, I faced myself, and so many young men face. So the answer to it, the empowerment within it, is that despite the barrage of mental and physical bullshit that we face, we need good fathers. We need good fathers getting on their shit and taking charge and leading their family and leading their sons in a proper and healthy way. Not just having, a kid and then fucking them off to the school system for the government to raise, not just, like letting them eat whatever mom puts on it. Like, no, you need to take charge and take responsibility for your family. Every single child is the responsibility of their parents. And there's so many fathers that just bitch about how their children turn out, not understanding that it's their fucking fault. It's insane. It's absolutely insane to me. It's disgusting and disturbing to me to hear a parent ever complain about how their child turns out. It's your fault,
Yeah, there's a lot of powerful stuff there, man. You were talking about how it's almost like they've lost hope of finding a woman that, I guess, finding a woman, period, because it seems like there's a lot of, I think there's no, I'm serious. There's some crazy percentage of men like the under 30 that are virgins that have, and then there's like another crazy percentage that like haven't had a sexual experience with a woman in the past 3 years. It's some crazy percentage. But, and I'm not saying being a virgin is a bad thing, but there's something that I want to say on that, because, and this is no doubt going to be controversial, but women are starting to stand up now. And I say starting to stand up because I feel like this is where I'm going to get attacked. I feel like feminism started out as a good thing. I feel like it was hijacked at some point. I don't know when, but it was hijacked at some point. And now it's being perpetuated to make a lot of these women feel like they're a victim so that it takes the power away from them. I think the same thing is played with the race card and the ethnicity card, because I think it started out as a good thing. And I think there's really good areas where that can be applied, where, there are racial discriminations in places. There are people who don't have opportunities based on their race and they're treated somewhere based on their race or gender, whatever it is. And so I think feminism and this racial equality thing, I think that's great. I think it started out as a good thing, but I think it was hijacked. And I think now it is keeping people of a specific race or ethnicity, or people of a specific gender, it is keeping them disempowered by perpetually telling them they're a victim. I think that's the bad part of it. But what inspires me about this is women are starting to ask questions now about where are the men, where are the traditional men? And so I think I'm hoping what it's going to do is allow women and men to see that, it's about equality of treatment, but it's not about equality of being like a man and a woman. We don't want those two people to be equal because they bring two different things to the table. Like the beauty of the relationship is like they're so different. Women are amazing at some things and men are amazing at some things, and we can just coexist in the way it's supposed to be, in harmony. And I think that's why so many relationships these days, like so many people are just have lost faith in the dating market, because the women are looking for the real men and the men are looking for the real women, and we can't find each other because we're blinded by this fucking psyop or whatever's going on from to keep us, just like with the race thing, to keep us fighting each other so we don't fight the actual problem. I mean, but like I guess what makes me hopeful of the situation is that now people are asking questions. Now the women, there's a lot of women and there's a lot who don't, and that's fine. There are women who are attracted to more feminine men, and that's 100% okay. There are men who are attracted to masculine women, and that's okay. But there are feminine women who are asking, where are the masculine men? There are masculine men who are asking, where are the feminine women? And I think I like to see that, man, because what I do not like to see is a political movement that was birthed because inequality of treatment or inequality of opportunities for people was hijacked to form this battle that keeps people victimized.
Yeah, and there's a lot to dig into there. So we can say it's okay, right, for a more masculine woman to get along with a more feminine man. And yeah, what is the definition of okay? Will they be able to coexist for longer? Like, yeah, maybe, but I will firmly stand behind that. I think the optimal outcome from a relationship will always come from a man operating in his masculine form and a woman operating in her feminine form. I'm not afraid to say that. And so let's dig into the social engineering movements, because that's what these movements are. They are social engineering movements. The feminism, the homosexual rights, the all these different things, they are all social engineering movements. And it's a very interesting thing that occurs when you dig into those that were not necessarily at the forefront publicly of them at their beginning, but at the puppeteer level, who was kind of behind the scenes funding it and operating it, and who's funding and operating the certain things now. I am more on the skeptical, or perhaps having looked into it side, that they were malevolent Trojan horses from the very beginning. These social engineers, they understand what they're doing. They understand that to get to a certain outcome that is entirely dissonant and upside down and backwards from natural reality and the way that people operate, you cannot just do it all at once. You have to take baby steps. And so perhaps all of these movements, though outwardly appearing like a positive, were Trojan horses all along to get us where we are today, where men aren't men, women aren't women, children are left alone for the government to raise in the school system, and pedophiles are in the bathrooms. Perhaps, right? It's very interesting when you look into who's funding all of these movements at the meta level. And so that's the social engineering side of things. This whole equality thing, it's a great feel-good concept, right? It's very fun and loving to say, yeah, equality. I just think it's so disconnected from reality to ever try to use that word in any sort of way. Life isn't equal. That's reality. Reality doesn't allow for equality. It just can't. It just can't. So this concept of equality is just artificial. Look, I'm not saying any race. I'm not saying any gender. I'm just saying people. There are some people that are stronger, and there's some people that are physically weaker. There are some people that are more intelligent. There's some people that are less intelligent. There's some people that are taller. There's some people that are shorter. Like, there's some people that have longer arms. There's some people that have shorter arms. Like, life isn't equal. It never can be. It never has been. It never will be. And so artificially trying to induce this concept of equality, one, it just creates this mental schema that's so false and just ridiculous that we cannot exist healthily within it. And it only causes friction because you're trying to purport something that just isn't real. But two, it takes away from the beauty that is life. It takes away from the beauty that is striving to be a better you. Equality and trying to get to this concept of equality is inherently comparing oneself to everyone else. If you say, I should be equal to them, and you're not, and you won't be, because you'll never can be, well, you're always going to be set up for disappointment. You're always going to feel wronged. Perhaps instead, you should focus on being a better you. Listen, in poker, everyone's not dealt the same cards. Not everyone starts with the same hand. But anyone at that table can win if they play it right.
Yep.
So trying to act like you're going to sit down to a poker table and you're going to get upset that you're all, dealt different cards, and you think that you should be dealt the same cards as someone else, or you get upset when you're not, that's not the rules of the game. Equality isn't the rules of life. So stop trying to think that it is. It's just lies.
That's very well said, and I understand the philosophy there. I hope that it's understood by people the way that you mean it, because when you say that equality is not real, I know what you're saying, and I hope that other people can see what you're saying. Because
Exactly. And listen, if people get upset, they get upset. There's certain people that get upset because you say, the sky is blue. But like,
Right.
it just is the reality, and it's time for things to be said the way that they need to be said and the way that they actually are. Because on the other side of the outrage, coming to comprehend these things, it's actually the message of ultimate empowerment. Because what did I just do? I disarmed the victim mentality of and the stress and the strife that comes from trying to strive for equality that will never be achievable. It's a false path. It's a black hole. And I empowered people to be a better self, to look at themselves in relation to who they woke up as, not who everyone else is. The beauty is that behind these so-called, offensive things is very often a very loving and empowering and positive message. And so that's why it's time for those things to be said. It absolutely is.
100% agree, man. Listen, I'm gonna have to get out of here in just a couple minutes. Let me do this because this is actually a pretty long video. I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna run to the bathroom for like 5 seconds. I'm gonna come back and we'll close this thing out. But let me stop this video just really quick.
You got it.
Yeah, I hate to cut it out right here, man, because we're getting into some good stuff. But maybe we'll have to do a round 2 of this thing and get more into what we're talking about here. But yeah, what were you gonna say there?
Yeah, I'd love to have a chat with you again anytime you'd like, man. So, on the whole equality thing, I want to be very clear. I advocate for being respectful to everyone and to operate in life with a stance that you are going to behave properly and well and treat people well. But you mentioned something before when we were talking about equality, in that people are you said that equality of treatment is a good thing. But is it actually? Or is treating people with a fundamental approach of respect, but in accordance to who they are, the most appropriate thing, right? Like, again, it sounds so nice to say we're going to treat everyone equally in all regards, always. But quite honestly, I don't speak to men the way I speak to women.
Right.
Does that mean I am disrespectful to either? No, it actually means I respect who they are, and I respect how I can optimize our interaction. It's not like, it doesn't have to be a bad thing to not have equality and to treat people as the beautiful individual that they are coming to you as. It
Right.
can actually be quite the opposite and be the most positive and most respectful thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because when I say equal treatment, you're exactly right. Like the way I would respect you and talk to you with respect is very different from how I would talk to a woman and treat her with respect, which is very different from how I would talk to an elderly person and treat them with respect, and very different how I talk to a child and treat them with respect. So yes, that's correct. And I think that right there proves the point that you're saying. It's like, well, equality. I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean that everybody who, wants to be a basketball player? Okay, well, all the shorter guys, what do we give them, like a free shot every game? I mean, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, what does equality even mean? And so, yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe the shorter basketball players have a harder time at being but maybe not though. I mean, I'm sure there's I don't know much about basketball, but I'm sure there's a position where a shorter person would probably benefit from being on the team versus a taller person.
I don't know if I'm not a sports guy at all, but I know there's a good handful of shorter basketball players that were fucking gangsters, like that were just all-stars, MVPs. Who's coming to mind is Allen Iverson. I'm going to look up his height. I'm not a basketball person or sports person at all, but I do know, no, he was 6 foot. Bad example. But I know there were some out there. And the beautiful thing is, when they do manage to be great, they're that much greater for it.
Well, and that's what I was going to say.
Better of the story.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's part of their greatness. That's part of your story. I mean, but like that's what I'm saying. What does that even mean? Like there are people who have come from the inner city and been successful, and that's part of their story. They don't have the same starting point as maybe somebody in the suburbs. And I don't mean to generalize here. I'm just saying that's the typical example. But
Spud
it's
Webb.
like, what's that?
I just Googled it. Spud Webb is like a huge all-time all-star basketball player. He was 5'7". So
Okay.
average height.
So I mean, but if you look at like even David Goggins, okay, I'm sure you know who David Goggins is.
Yeah.
He was like 300 pounds, man, and then he went to go do all these things, Navy SEAL, marathon, records and all this other stuff. Like that's part of his story. Like he didn't have a starting point. He wasn't a 175-pound guy, and he wanted to go be a Navy SEAL. He was 300 fucking pounds and he wanted to go be a Navy SEAL. And it's like, that's part of his story. Like, so what does equality even mean? There's a book. What is the book where they have, I think it's Fahrenheit 451. Is that right? Do they have,
That's what they burn the books.
Okay. What was it? What's the one? Okay. There's a book where they have basically everybody's strengths or benefits are dumbed down to make it an even playing ground for everybody else. I forget what book that's called. Somebody out there is going to know, but I mean, is that what we're talking about when we say equality? Because I hope not. That's not.
Well, see, yeah, that's a great element to the conversation because equality, like I said, will never be achievable, and certain people will never achieve a certain result in the high end of the spectrum. So in reality, what equality ends up doing is just dragging everyone down to the baseline. That's equality, because not all people can be high performers, but people can be neutered to only stay down at the bottom. That is the actual thing that happens in equality. Everyone gets fucked. Nobody gets allowed to be great, to be beautiful, to be bold, to be achieving. That's the Trojan horse of this buzzword equality. What actually happens is everyone gets wrecked. Instead of everyone having the opportunity to play their cards in some sort of way, everyone just gets wrecked and everyone stays poor and everyone should be fat and everyone should be dumb. And that's equality in actuality. Worse results for everybody. It takes away the game. It takes away the beauty that is striving to achieve. It just tears everybody down because that's the only way everyone can be taller or can be equal. If you can't make someone taller, right?
Right.
So what can you do? Yeah, you can add stilts, but let's think about it just like a body, right? A body, a naked body, no enhancements, no like additional things added to it. You can't really make someone taller, but what can you do? You could chop the other people's legs down. Now everyone's equal.
Mm-hmm.
But now that person's missing half their leg. Like that's what ends up happening.
But I think if we really break this down, and if we really think about this, equality of, so there's actual debate about this, equality of opportunity and equality of outcome. We're kind of talking about equality of outcome right now. I think the general consensus is that everybody should have the same opportunities. You shouldn't have any.
Even that's impossible. We don't. That's like saying everyone should have the same cards to start the game. Some people don't.
Well, we don't. But what I'm saying is, I think the consensus is that you should not have an opportunity based on something that you can't control, like race or identity or whatever. I think that's the argument.
Well, but okay. The problem is, obviously, I'm going to say the obvious truth is that what has happened in reality is the swinging back of it's when we focus on these things, someone suffers in some regard. And so in these whole diversity and inclusion programs that these worlds have been, seeing these days in the form of hiring with diversity in mind, giving away scholarships with diversity in mind, all it does is fuck white people. What diversity means is just anti-white people. That's what it means. You see all these photos. Oh, look how diverse this plane crew is, and it's just all black people. Like, that's not diverse. And what it fails to understand is that there is diversity within white people. Is a German the same as an Italian? Is the same as a French person? Is the same as a Swede? Is the same as a Dane? Like, diversity has come to be synonymous with just anti-white people, and I'm not afraid to say it as a mixed race person myself. People will say I'm, white presenting, but I'm a mongrel mutt myself of ethnicities, several of which are South American and other, origins as well. But diversity has just been a Trojan horse to bring in anti-white people programs. You can leave that in or take that out if you want, but that's the truth.
Well, I'm just thinking, man, it seems like what I don't understand about that is why is it that white people is the only race that I feel like you can attack and not be attacked for?
Well, God, how deep do you want to go, man? Perhaps white people have been the only people historically to stand up against other groups and stand up against certain things successfully that have been tried to be enacted upon them. And so perhaps they are the enemy to other ethno groups. I'll leave it at that.
But it's like, are we not evolved? Like, have we not evolved like to a point past all this shit? Like, are we not at a place where we can where everybody just like, how long ago are we talking about right here? Like,
I think for as long as history is written that we at least know of publicly, there's been certain ethno groups and certain people that hate other ethno groups and think that they are the chosen ones that should run the entire world and, don't like anyone else standing up against them. And so, perhaps there's always been psyops and attempts at manipulation, and perhaps that's just the way of the world. Perhaps everyone's always going to strive for power, and people realize that from the shadows you can operate a lot more successfully and without resistance than going in by brute force Genghis Khan style. So perhaps for a long time there's been shadow operations going on trying to bring us to a certain state where everyone's fucked, and perhaps certain ethno groups are used as weapons purported upon other ethno groups, and perhaps certain entities want everyone else's culture but their own to be completely dismantled and completely forgotten and completely diluted and mixed in and conglomerated into this ethno-neutral mush for everyone else besides themselves. And perhaps they see a lot of advancement towards their agendas of trimming the herd of cattle via accomplishing these things.
Well, like I was saying earlier, what I do think is hijacking the feminist movement or hijacking the racial the racial attacks that obviously still do exist on both sides. Hijacking both of those movements is going to is at least going to guarantee one thing, which is have us fighting each other and not fighting the establishment. Have us running a circus while the real show is still going on behind the scenes, and we're not even addressing that point. I think that's, if there was a motivation behind keeping everybody at each other's throats, I think that would be it. And I think that's I mean, there's no way you can not see that.
Yeah, and if that is some group or assortment of groups motivation, then they're doing a damn good job, and it's no more fundamental than the relationship between a man and the woman, because that's what the backbone of society is. The dynamics of men and women are the backbone of society. They will not only affect that individual's whole mental model and schema and affect their mood and emotions, but that's going to create the children of tomorrow. That's what the society's built upon. The society, you don't care to have a good, healthy relationship with your neighbor when you just are so stressed out from your relationship at home that you just give up on life and want to watch TV and drink beer. You don't want to have a good relationship with life and go and conquer and raise good children when you can't even go home to your wife without her bitching about some shit. And that's not to say that the wife wants to bitch. Perhaps you're being a shitty person too, and she should be bitching at you because you're not on your shit as a man. But the point is that everyone's so busy bickering amongst themselves, be it in that relationship unit or, of course, amongst races as well, that you don't stand up against the certain things. But I think, again, if we want to get on the race side of things, I think a lot of it is a direct result of all of the races trying to be forced and conglomerated into this ethno-neutral mush. I think the happiest and healthiest societies with the most trust and the least crime are the most homogeneous societies. And I think statistics, as much as statistics can lie a lot of the times, will show that as well. I think people like people that look like them, and that's a biological, innate function of our brains for protection and preservation of ourselves, and that's okay. And I think when we have this great experiment that is the West, that's trying to mush everyone into each other with different values and different belief structures and different, like things that are driving them, I think there's very few ways that could result in anything other than utter chaos that we see today.
So I see what you're saying, but I'm gonna have to push back on that one for a minute because
all things are nuanced. All things are nuanced.
Well, I mean, because I understand what you mean when you say that it is sort of hardwired in us to see a person who looks different from us and be somewhat on edge or on guard. I understand that because in the past, through our ancestors, that meant something that somebody we didn't know, a possible disease, a possible war, a possible attack. I understand, like if we're talking about over centuries, why seeing a person who doesn't look like you, I understand that. But and you say that's biologically hardwired in, and I do agree with that. But it's also biologically wired in for us to do something as simple as eat sugar, eat something that tastes good. But that doesn't mean that we can just act on that all the time. We have to have, if we're going to be a civilization and we're going to be disciplined and we're going to be some sort of society that is civilized as a people, we have to look past that. And we have to say, okay, well, maybe it tastes good to eat sugar, but that doesn't mean I'm going to eat sweets all day long. Maybe it's hardwired in me to not to look at somebody that doesn't look like me and think that I should be on edge. But like I see myself and I see my society as a civilization. So it's
like I said, going back, my fundamental schema for approaching the world and approaching people is with outright and utmost respect, regardless of who it is, man, woman, yellow, green, black, white, or purple. Like, I don't care. Yes, the operational default should be respect, should be open-mindedness to a realistic and respectful degree. The concept that we all live amongst each other and then, everything's good. Like, I think if everyone was conscious and living benevolently and wanting the best for themselves and so wanting the best for others and everyone individually answered to a higher power in a healthy way, then putting everyone in the same room together would be like awesome. Like that's absolutely awesome. And we could learn from each other and live with each other. I'm not against that. My fundamental advocation and what we need is not, homogeneous societies only. Far from it. My ultimate advocation is for everyone to be existing on a conscious state. My thing that I'm saying is when people are not existing with a conscious, benevolent, high vibrational basis point, adding more variables to the mix is like adding fuel to that fire that's already existing in each person. Do you understand that? That's the important point. That's the important point. When you're trying to do something and it's not going well, you don't add more potential for chaos to the mix. Do you understand that very important differentiation?
I think what you're saying about being conscious about this is the same thing that I'm saying about being civilized. I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Listen, I'm not saying ignore people that aren't your ethnicity. I'm not saying don't move into a neighborhood because it's like a different ethnicity. I'm not saying don't hire people. I'm not saying treat people with any less respect. Absolutely not. I'm just simply referring to biological tendencies that are innately within us that have been demonized and should be outwardly said because they're not necessarily bad things, because they inherently come from a place of protection and preservation of our cultures and of our values and of our beliefs. That is a beautiful thing, preserving those things. I am not at all ever saying to treat someone like a lesser individual due to their demographic. Make that clear.
Well, I'll tell you what we do need. We do need to be able to have a conversation about these kind of things. Yeah. We do need to be able to bring this to the front, to the forefront and have these kind of conversations without being attacked or without being labeled something, or without being labeled a misogynist or a racist or a bigot or anything else. Like we need to, or a narcissist or whatever else.
All these things are so overused and overplayed that they're kind of like badges of honor.
Everybody's a narcissist, man. Everybody's ex is a narcissist. Like if you just broke up with somebody in 2024, your ex is a narcissist. It's automatic. Yeah. Like, but anyways, I'm just saying we need to be able to have these conversations without labeling the person that we're talking with, and we need to be able to talk about whatever this is, whatever angle you're talking about this from. We need to be able to have these conversations. Listen, man, we could keep going. I have to stop.
Let me toss in one more caveat so I look a little less like a demon.
Okay.
Obviously, I understand that there are plenty that, like I said, homogeneous societies don't necessarily determine a crime rate or overall fulfillment or trust in their neighbor, right? There are plenty of more homogeneous areas or societies that are ridden and laden with crime and chaos and nonsense as well. So that is not a direct one-to-one outcome. This brings into play the overall vibrational state and conscious existence and benevolency or malevolency and approach to life that people within that society are outwardly expressing and living within internally. That's the fundamental factor for if we are going to live in peace and harmony or chaos and disharmony. The individual conscious level, no matter what that outward expression of body and self and skin color looks like. Make that clear.
I got you. Okay, so I don't even know. How do we even end from here? Where can people find you? Do you have social media, a website, or anything? Anything you want to shout out while you're here?
Yeah, I got a couple things. So, on the side of the equation of BeatCancer.org, that's what we go by at the Center for Advancement in Cancer Education, because that official and formal name is a bit of a mouthful. We also go by BeatCancer.org. So if someone's interested in checking out our programs, whether that's our free counseling for anyone with a cancer concern with our in-house naturopathic doctor that has several decades of experience, you can contact us at beatcancer.org, explore our website. There's links to several of our different programs right there. You can email me personally at zfrank@beatcancer.org for any inquiries on that level. We have, like I said, a variety of programs. Every Thursday evening, we get together for a weekly call. No cost, no, opt-in needed, just show up. There's instructions on our website. You can ask a question to our holistic cancer coaches, participate in discussion, bring something to the table about holistic cancer healing or just health in general or cancer in general. It's a very great way to get some free introductory resources to our organization and things that we talk about. Explore our blog, take our course if you're interested. If you're interested in really diving into the things that we talk about and really getting the most personal experience and deep resources, you go to our course. At the tail end of that course, you can also become a certified holistic cancer coach. We've trained and certified hundreds of holistic cancer coaches all around the world, and we have people operating in different capacities, some of which do it for free, some of which are making six-figure plus incomes as a holistic cancer coach entrepreneur. We offer the course to certify you to do that. We also offer continuing business resources and support and the backing of our almost 50-year-old organization in whatever endeavor you wish to take upon the cancer coaching world. On the personal side of things, you can also check out my podcast. I cover all sorts of topics like we just talked about today and more. You go to zakthehealthking.com. I prefer if you spell it Z-A-K. That's how I spell my name, but if you spell it wrong, you still end up in the right place. If you're interested in being on the show, you can email me at zakthehealthking@gmail.com. And my other links are on that website I just gave as well. So that's probably more than enough.
Perfect. Yeah. So if you can send me those links too, I'll attach them and put them everywhere that the video is going to be. So one last question for you, man, that I kind of ask everybody before we close out. What do you think is one of the most valuable lessons you've ever learned, either through your career, your personal life, if it's something you're comfortable sharing? What do you think is one of the most valuable lessons from your life?
One of the most valuable lessons, I think, is to act with speed. So many people are slow. So many people have things that they know they should be doing or they say they want to do, but they just drag ass and don't do it, or say they'll do it tomorrow, or say they'll do it after this other thing happens, and then they'll do it after this thing happens. There's always a reason not to act, but you will get to where you want to be faster if you act now. And if you do act now, because so many people don't and they fail to act with speed, and because people are slow, you'll get very far just by doing things. Always be progressing on some front of your life at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll live a very fantastic life, or at least better than you are now. That's my number one rule. Act with speed, do the thing, figure it out, do it, keep going.
I like that, man. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one yet. That makes sense. Act with speed, because time is limited and it's constantly ticking, and it's not just about, I feel like it's not about what we do so much as how quickly we can do it, because the world is so competitive, man. Like that,
Yeah.
I don't care what it is that you want to do or achieve. There's somebody else that wants that thing,
Yeah.
and speed is everything. That really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, whether it's business, whether it's personal development, whether it's anything, just do the thing. Just do it. Like, people overcomplicate it. There's always a million reasons not to do the thing. Just do it.
Man, listen, this has been a really good conversation. I'm going to close this out just really quick. Hang out for just a second and let me talk to you about the release and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, this has been a great conversation. I'm ready to hear this one back. I think this is going to be a good one, especially that last 45 minutes or so. So
thank you for having me on, Cody. This is a blast. I was looking forward to this since the first time we spoke, and it certainly delivered. I would love to do it again anytime you want, man.
Hey guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you enjoyed this podcast or enjoyed this episode, you can find more at Pure Wisdom Podcast. This is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. There you can subscribe, like, and share and interact with all of our content. Again, we appreciate it, and we will see you next time.